Hello, this is DanaArcuri.com, author, speaker, survivor, and advocate. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we're going to be talking about a very intriguing subject matter. I've done a lot of research. I can't find that much on the internet or even on YouTube about this topic. And so I always do what I do best, people. I start researching, I start educating myself, I start searching online for credible content, and when I can't find it, I create my own. Hey, that's what it's all about, right? Let's just keep talking and learning and broadening our horizons. So today I am going to ask and talk about a subject that you may not have even considered, but hey, let's kind of keep it wide open for a new discussion on my channel. And so the one thing I had thought of for the past 3 years, it's been pretty much just twirling around in my mind. And I thought to myself, can a golden child become a family scapegoat? And so I'm going to start this by saying nobody chooses the family role. So there's various people in the family dynamics who have this role that they never chose. Never in a million years would any of us choose to be the black sheep of the family or the family scapegoat. But in regards to anyone else in the family, so there is the golden child, and they didn't choose to have that role. And then there's the forgotten child, the lost child. So I always consider this person the one who might be the middle of the family. Now, it's not always the case. They could be the firstborn, the secondborn, the middle child, the last child, or the only child of the family. But it's pretty interesting when we take a big look at our past history to unravel the mystery and see, like, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what role did we have way back then in comparison to what role we were given now? And so let's dive deep into this topic on, can a golden child become the family scapegoat? And is it possible that the roles of the toxic family unit are flip-flopped upside down? And so what once had been a certain dynamic in the family may now have changed, kind of switched it up. Things kind of blew up. As we had talked about previously, the toxic family really can explode, implode. They can have a major crisis when the scapegoat leaves. But if we kind of like back it up a little, like go back in history, we're going to examine our own past. We're going to reflect on, say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even further beyond. And we're going to really take a closer glimpse into what role we played in our early days versus what role we play today. And so let's start with, what is a golden child? So according to Wiktionary.com, quote unquote, the golden child is one who is favored or is the favorite of the family. Now, I personally believe that the golden child is the favorite of the malignant narcissist, not so much the toxic siblings. Now, we have to understand the toxic siblings are ticked off at this golden child. They despise him or her, whoever this child may be. They can't stand that the mother or father and other relatives, maybe it's the grandparents, have their little favorite, and they are fired up and angry, and they are vengeful, and they are going to get back and instigate troubles for the golden child. But we have to understand, hey, this golden child didn't ask to be who he or she became. They never asked for it. This is just something that happens within the toxic family structure. And so we have to understand that, the average person's not going to choose to be any of these. Let's be real. We want a family that's intact, that's stable, that's healthy, that loves us, that accepts us, that validates us, that cares for us, that respects us. And we find out through life that this isn't possible. The toxic family unit is not capable of giving us respect, of love, of care, and of tender, loving care. They just don't have it in them. Instead, they do fight back. There is division and there is conflict. So let's carry on with this discussion. So the golden child is often held in high esteem by the narcissistic parent. So as far as the narcissist, the parent who is a narc, they will assign roles to each child. So whether there's 2 kids in the family, 4 children, 6 children, 10 children or beyond, or sometimes even if there's only 1 child in the family, the narc parent will give each child or the only child a role to play, whether they like it or not. In the case of most people, when it's happening in the very early days, we are oblivious to it. We are unaware. A lot of us may not have understood narcissistic personality disorder, may not have understood intergenerational abuse, trauma, manipulation, gaslighting, and et cetera, et cetera. So we may not have really understood it or known about it until later in life. And so the golden child is one role in the family. Then there's the forgotten child. There is the scapegoat. And I believe that there could be at least one sibling that is a narcissist, or at least someone who has very, very close traits and characteristics of a narcissist. And the golden child is the peacemaker. They do have some positive traits, so let's not trash them. Let's really come to understand them. Maybe put yourself in their shoes just for a moment so you could kind of see what they are experiencing and understanding how in the world this even happened to them. Okay, so the golden child is the peacemaker of the family. They are loyal to the narcissistic parent. Typically, they are compliant and obedient, and this is why they're chosen that role, because maybe they have always gotten along pretty well with the narcissistic parent. Maybe because they are a peacemaker, the narc favored them. Maybe the other kids, especially the child that is the bully of the family, they go head to head with the narcissistic parent. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of conflict. There might be physical abuse, a lot of turmoil within these 2 individuals within the family dysfunction. I know I personally saw it with my sister and my mother. Oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. My sister got it, but good. Anytime she rebelled, my mother gave it to her. And when I say gave it to her, I mean my mother beat her up. My mother smacked her, punched her. My mother was violent with her. There was definitely domestic violence on the home front in my toxic birth family. And it was horrifying for me as a child because I was the youngest observing this and terrified of what could happen to me. And so I learned through observing all 4 of my older siblings and their behaviors and the roles they played. I knew I didn't want to be on the bad side of the narc mother. But keep in mind, 50 some years ago, I didn't know my mother was a narcissist. 50 some years ago, I only understood that she was a very neglectful, abusive mother. There was a lot of neglect. There was a lot of physical and emotional abuse. So that's the only thing I was aware of. But again, hey, there were dark secrets and nobody was allowed to talk about it. And I guarantee I kept my mouth shut as a child. So I think what blows my mind is now that I've spent 3 years really educating myself on narcissistic personality disorder, on the toxic family dynamics, and on intergenerational trauma, I've really come to appreciate how far I've come, but I am a bit blown away by a few things. And so hold your hats, folks. Hold your hats, because boy, do I have a winner for you. I have something to share with you, and I've kind of talked about it just a teeny tiny bit here and there in a few past videos, but I'm calling this one out. So here we go. I hope you're sitting down and you can take this. You can take this and understand this and not hate on me. I used to be the golden child in my family, and I've known this the whole time. I've known this all along, and I kept, a little bit quiet about it, especially with my siblings, because they definitely despised me. There were a lot of issues with envy and instigating a lot of chaos and troubles for me because they knew that I was my mother's favorite. They despised me for it. So before you hit the unlike button, let's just talk about this and talk about how in the world did I go from being the golden child to becoming the family scapegoat? Because that is something really hard to wrap your mind around. It's a hard pill to swallow when it's you. And maybe you experienced this. Maybe you did experience it, but you are not even aware that you were the golden child. You just haven't come to that reality yet. And now this may just confirm, oh yeah, yep, you were the golden child and you were somehow flipped into a new role and switched over to the family scapegoat. So let's move on into this dynamic. So when I really dived deep into self-reflection, analyzing, examining, and really thinking over my past 50 years, especially taking a deep dive into my childhood, into my 30s and my 40s, and then everything that transpired in 2018, because that's when there were some big changes that came my way. So let's chat about it. So the thing is, when you're brought up in a home that has intergenerational trauma, at least one narcissistic parent, and the parent could also be psychologically abusive, they could be bullies, they could be manipulative, there could be child neglect, physical abuse, and so much deep, deep trauma that pierces your soul. What happens is some children grow up so desperate for the love of their parent. They just want their parent to love them. And isn't that our birthright? Yes, absolutely. It's our birthright to be loved unconditionally. And so I wanted my mother to love me and to accept me. And it was so hard to be raised in a family where she was absent physically and emotionally and spiritually. And then to add on top of it that my father was an absent dad, that he did not participate in my life. I was isolated, I was alone, and as a child, I had deep, deep sorrow. And so I was dedicating to spending my life, especially my teenage years up through early adulthood, to win my mother's love and approval. I so desperately wanted her attention. I wanted her to be a part of my life. I wanted her to be my friend. And I'm going to really keep it real. And this really, it's like my heart just sinks at this right now. My heart just feels crushed right now and shattered and broken to be talking about it, because what was going on then and then what transpired in 2018 and then what's happening now, we're talking, it is like night and day. There has been such a huge, huge, significant change in this family, especially with me, that it's hard for me to even think about the days when my mother was my best friend. So for all of you who are like, whoa, I can't believe your narcissistic mom was your best friend at one time. It's true. My mother and I became very, very close when I was in my middle 20s. My mother at that time really seemed to advocate for me. If my sisters would pick on me and say horrible, malicious things about me, my mother defended me. My mother protected me. My mother was there for me. And hey, things have really changed. Things have really changed. And I think that's why it cuts like a knife. Because at one time, my mom and I were best friends. My mom and I had a deep, deep love. She knew she could count on me, and I'm close to tears now because I don't know. I don't know what the hell went wrong. How do you explain intergenerational trauma? How do you explain how these roles are flipped and you don't even know about it when it's happening? How does a narcissistic parent goes from having a golden child to saying, no, I think I want you to be the scapegoat, and then gaslighting you, manipulating you, hurting you, psychologically abusing you, physically abusing you? I mean, I'm sorry, but I am still trying to process this, and it may take me a few more years to really fully grasp my own reality with it. But you can understand that one time my mom and I had a very, very strong bond. Now I'm understanding that it was a trauma bond. Now I'm understanding that she wanted me to be codependent on her. She brainwashed me to believe that I couldn't survive without her. She made me believe that I needed her and I was nothing without her. And there's a lot I've learned in the last few years, especially now that she passed away. So, I think back, like, hey, what was life like, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? So I'm going to give you a picture. I'm going to just give you a little picture of what it was like. So I'd be going about my day, and my kids were a lot younger, and I was working a job I loved in the beauty industry, doing makeup and hair and skincare. I'm so passionate about that in those days of my life, and volunteering at church and volunteering at my kids' school. And I was just busy, busy, busy. And I juggled a lot of different hats. And then all of a sudden my phone would ring and say I'm getting ready to go grocery shopping and I have all these errands to run, and all of a sudden my phone rings and I pick it up and it's my mother, and she says, my car broke down. Can you come help me? And I'm like, okay, where are you? And then I leave, I hurry up, I skip the grocery shopping, I skip all the responsibilities and duties I had for that day, and I rush to help my mother. And then there's another day, and again, I'm busy. Hey, I'm a busy person. I was working, I have kids, I have a family, I'm a wife. I was juggling a whole heck of a lot. And the phone would ring and it's my mom, and she's like, I'm sick, can you come over? I need help. So I drop everything and I go over and I help my mother. And then when I'm at my mother's, after I get her situated and in bed and I feed her, maybe I give her medicine, maybe I even have to make her a doctor's appointment. So I'm back on the phone again and I call her doctors and I schedule her an appointment, and I might have to drive her there because she has vertigo and now she's really sick. So I'm stepping up to the plate and I'm going to help her. And where are the rest of the siblings? They never stepped up to the plate to be the first one to immediately sacrifice everything going on in your life to help mother. No, I was the one who sacrificed everything. I was the one who dropped everything for her, because lo and behold, who the hell else is going to do it? Because if they're not going to do it, back then I wasn't going to let my mother be isolated, alone, and struggling. I have a big heart, and I was a peacemaker back then. And now I see, I've always been empathic. I've always been compassionate. I've always been a highly sensitive person. So I was very, very sensitive to my mother. I wanted to be there. I wanted to support her. And it really upset me during those timelines. I mean, we're talking years and years and years, when my mom always called me first. She didn't call the other sisters. Well, why not? So I asked her one day, why are you always calling me first? I know I live close to you, but I'm just curious, why me? Why not someone else? And she said, because you're the first one who will drop everything for me. You're the one who really loves me. You're the one who really understands me. You're the one who really cares about me. I don't think some of them will sacrifice anything for me. I think they'll actually shove me under the bus and forget about me. But you're the one who's there for me. You're the one who is always there for me. And that is the truth. That is the truth. And while my siblings may hate it and say, oh no, that's not the truth. Oh, well, you could gaslight me all you want, but I know the facts, and I'm calling it out. I'm calling it out. Back then I was the golden child. Back then I was dedicated to my mother. And back then I stood up for her. So whenever, like, my one narcissistic sister would constantly be bashing my mother, saying really, really hurtful things to her. And think about it. If you have a narcissistic parent and then That narcissistic parent has at least one narcissistic child. Those two are like a war zone. And so these two did not get along. I was well aware of it. And my mother always tried to get me on her side. And there were times my sister would call me and try to get me on her side. So I always felt like I was being shoved into the middle of their war, which obviously, no, I don't want your drama. I don't want your trauma. I don't want the junk going on between two other people that has nothing to do with me. But, sometimes narcissistic people, they will bring you into their drama. They love to stir up a lot of conflicts and division, and they want people on their side. But it was really hard when I was shoved into the middle of this. But when I started looking into like all the things that happened, my mother had many, many times of surgeries. I can't even count on two hands. I mean, I'm talking many, many. She had a knee replacement. She had another knee replacement. She had the shoulder. She had to get the shoulder surgery. She had to get the back surgery. She had to get so many different surgeries. The hysterectomy, oh my Lord, so many surgeries. I can't even keep track of how many times she was in the hospital, how many times she had to go to physical therapy, how many times she needed maybe some form of care from someone in the family. And so my mom would always ask me, would you take me to the hospital? Would you be able to help me out? Would you be able to go grocery shopping for me? Can you pick up my medicine at the pharmacy? All these different things. And so what happened was there was the one situation I remember when my mom had like the knee replacement and the doctor said, she needs support from her daughters. So the doctor was very clear before my mom was discharged from the hospital that my mother needed help. And none of the sisters said, hey, I'll do it. Hey, I'll do it. No, nobody wanted to go sleep over mother's house. Nobody wanted to sacrifice their life, their freedom, their own ways of living, how they might be working, they might be coming and going, and they might have to sacrifice something for her. No, they didn't want to give up their life. Let Dana do it. Let Dana do it. And so Dana did it. And that's what happened. So when my mom had one surgery after another surgery and the doctor made it clear, he communicated she needed help and made it clear to us girls, I was the one who spent the night. I was the one who sacrificed. And I remember my narcissistic sister saying, well, you don't work full time. That again, that's gaslighting. That's a bunch of BS. Just because I was working part-time doesn't mean that I am free 24/7 around the clock to give up my life, to give up my job, to give up my parenting, and to give up my role as a wife to my husband every single time my mother needed me. Like, why couldn't the sisters do it? Why couldn't the sisters do it? Oh, I'm sure they live in denial even till this very moment. But the point is this. My mom always needed help, and nobody seemed to want to do it. I was always the first one who would step up to the plate. So when she had surgery back in 2016, and we're talking full-blown brain surgery, people. My mom was diagnosed with brain cancer. She was in stage 3 cancer. The doctor clearly stipulated one of you has to spend several nights, or you could take turns spending nights with your mother. You have to help her. She can't be doing lifting. She can't really be doing anything. My goodness, she just had brain surgery. And so nobody said they would do it. Nobody offered. And I wasn't going to just betray my mother. I was not going to abandon her in her time of need. So I did it. So I spent the night. So I took care of her. So I went to the pharmacy. So I cooked for her and I cleaned for her and I did laundry for her and I helped her. And I texted my sisters and I said, okay, I spent the first night. Who's next? And do you know what their answer was? Do you know what the response was in the text message? Oh, she doesn't need help. No, she's okay. That's a crock of BS, because she did need help and I was fully aware of it. And how dare the narc sister who's in the medical field claim that my mother, who just had brain surgery, did not need any form of help. I think it's despicable and appalling, but that's beyond the point. The point is that during that timeline, I was the golden child, and I was my mom's favorite, and my sisters hated me for it. They were so jealous. They couldn't stand that my mom and I were always together. And when my mom was in better health, we'd be grocery shopping, we'd be at the mall, we'd be going to the movies, I'd take her out to dinner, we'd be going here and there, and we did a lot together. We spent a lot of time together. But in 2017, everything changed, a radical change. I clearly understood there was an intense shift in the family structure. So my sisters discarded me. They started doing a lot of things like family functions and outings and going camping and going to restaurants and going to special events, and I was never included. They did not invite me. And this was the timeline, like 2017, 2018. When my mother would call me and say, "Oh, did you know that your sisters went camping? Oh, did you know your sisters went to such and such? Oh, did you know they did this and that?" So she'd always tell me, and I felt like at the time, she was rubbing it in my face. She was trying to hurt me. And I thought it was pretty manipulative. I thought it was not kind. And I started seeing things in a whole new way. So by 2018, I woke up, I educated myself about narcissistic personality disorder, about the toxic family unit, about boundaries, about manipulation, trying to understand, hey, what's gaslighting? What does it mean when someone's doing smear campaigns against you? So I really did a lot of extensive research and was like, whoa, this is what I'm going through. And I'm not the golden child anymore. And whoa, I'm the family scapegoat now. And I don't even know how this happened. And so the roles changed. So my one sister, who was the forgotten child, became the golden child. She could do no wrong. She was Miss Perfect. And my mother would tell me about it 24/7, around the clock, bragging and praising the golden child sister. And I was just like stumped and mystified and confused. Like, how did this happen? What's going on? It was very, very bizarre. And then what happened was I started feeling rejected from my own mother. In the days where she used to protect me and defend me and stand up for me, those days were gone. I'm talking long gone. So in 2018, my mom no longer stood up for me. My mom no longer protected me. She did not defend me. Instead, she was triangulating every one of my relationships with my father, with my siblings, with family friends, with other relatives. She was gaslighting me. She was manipulating me. She was, she would have the sudden amnesia. So I'd call her out on her bullshit and she'd say, "I don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't remember saying that. Are you sure? Oh, you're just too sensitive. You're the problem. It's all you." And so then I realized that my mom no longer cared about me. My mom no longer loved me. My mother didn't give a hoot about me. Instead, she was my enemy. And it was quite painful, heartbreaking, and traumatic to finally realize that I had one time been very, very close with her. And now I felt like I was her enemy. I felt like she was a stranger. I didn't know who she was anymore. She surely was not the person who I had known 20, 30 years ago. And so I came to the understanding that my mother did have narcissistic traits and characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder. No, she was not officially diagnosed, and many, many, many people are not ever diagnosed ever with narcissistic personality disorder. And even if they were, they'd deny it. So I started seeing that, yep, she's gaslighting me. Oh, yeah, there's manipulation. Oh, she's retaliating. Oh, she's giving me the silent treatment. Oh, she's discarding me. Oh, there she goes again, triangulating me again and again and again. Boy, oh boy, does it get old. And so I was ostracized by my siblings and my mother. I was criticized. I was shamed and I was blamed. They ganged up on me and it was family mobbing. They bullied me. They discredited me. And so in 2018, I went full no contact with them. And I realized that the most important thing I could do for me and my health and even my children was to have a very clear set of healthy boundaries, to no longer communicate at all with my siblings, my mother, and my relatives, because it was not only harming me, it was harming my own children. And my own children, they called out the BS. My children, out of the mouths of babes, that's all I can say, out of the mouths of babes, because children, even if they're young or old, they will speak the truth. A lot of times they'll see things that we don't see. Did your kids ever say to you, Mom or Dad, what are you doing? This person in the family doesn't love you. They don't even like you and they mistreat you and they're so cruel to you. So that's what my kids shared with me. Mom, you shouldn't even give them the time of day. Like, why are you even in a relationship with them? They hate you. They trample all over your boundaries. They're so disrespectful of you. They're so cruel to you. They're so mean. And so finally I was like, you know what, you're right. You're so absolutely correct. And it's time for me to cut the ties for once and for all. So that's what I did in 2018. So we have to understand that it's really hard because betrayal from, your mother is very, very, very traumatizing. And your betrayal from your family hurts. And there's no two ways around it. Anyone who is human, anyone who's conscious, anyone who has feelings and human emotions is going to be hurting when their family rejects them, ostracizes them, does not include them anymore, and is abused by them, and especially with any form of psychological or physical abuse. So ultimately, I am the fortunate one. I don't care that I became the scapegoat. I look at the whole picture now. It is what it is, people. I don't care about my toxic family anymore. When you go no contact, it's almost like you cut the cord, you cut the trauma bond. I visualized literally like cut, snip, 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 unhooking the trauma bond and the codependency with these people in my dysfunctional family unit. And I now see that I am the winner. I am the one who's free. I don't have to deal with this anymore. So it's really empowering and liberating, and it's so therapeutic when you stand up for yourself, when you admit the truth about abuse, when you take back your power, when you are the one to stop intergenerational abuse, you end the cycle of abuse, and you say, I'm ready for a new chapter. I'm ready for peace of mind. I deserve to be loved unconditionally. I deserve to be treated with respect and with dignity. And my friends, you deserve to be treated with love, respect, kindness, compassion, empathy, and dignity. And so today, share with me, what are the roles of your family? Were you ever the golden child? Are you presently either the black sheep of the family or the family scapegoat? If so, how did this happen? Share with me, are you still in contact with your family? Did you go gray rock with your family? Is it working or has that failed for you? How are you taking care of you and healing from intergenerational trauma? So I'd love to hear your stories. Please share with me. Like my video, subscribe to my channel, and you could visit me at danarcuri.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.